Welcome back, you beautiful people. It is me, Dr. Fez, bringing you another episode of Medshield Connect show. We're going to be talking about something that, I'll be honest with you, I'm not like 100% clued up about, and that's medical aid plans. There tends to be premiums and all of these other packages that are there for you, but might not always make sense. But you know what? We have an expert here, an executive in new business at Medshield Medical Scheme, Mr. Glen Sikosana.
As a doctor, I've always believed that good health isn't just about treating illness. It's about empowering people to live healthier, fuller lives. And through Medshield Connect, we're doing just that. This podcast helps you connect the dots between fitness, nutrition, mental well-being, and medical breakthroughs. We sit down with industry experts, thought leaders, and real people to unpack the many facets of health, giving you the knowledge and tools to make informed choices. Brought to you by Medshield, your trusted medical aid partner for life.
Thank you so much for sitting down with us, Glen.
Thank you.
Now, I kind of get a bit overwhelmed myself when it comes to medical aids and the schemes that are around. So I know people at home are probably also feeling like it's a bit intimidating. Could you tell me what are some of the considerations when you're trying to find the right one for you?
I usually say every potential member has got a need in mind. Okay. So until we answer the why for the member, chances are we're going to miss the mark. So remember, a member is potentially saying, I want to pay a premium, but at the top of their mind, already they know these are the kind of benefits that I'm looking for. For instance, there's easy ones like GP consultation, dentistry, optometry, those kind of benefits. So once a member is able to articulate that, then we can probe further to look at what are the others that potentially they would not know about, but they may have to plan for that.
Okay.
So practically speaking, we then reduce all that into what we call a needs analysis. It's just a record of everything that a member would have told us. And that document then informs, what kind of an option ideally would suit the needs of that member. So the issue of costs, really comes right at the end,
Yeah.
to inform the decision.
Sure. I mean, I know for me, that's always usually the first thing, especially when I was younger student starting out as a young professional. I was always thinking, okay, this is how much money I'm going to have. And I just want to make sure that at least if I get to hospital, everything should be fine. And I think that's where the overwhelming points get with a lot of people. But I do know when you kind of touch base with people, you interact with the brokers, and they're the ones who navigate this particular journey. Could you tell me, first of all, so everybody at home knows, it's not like I don't know, what a broker is, their role, and then how they navigate. And I know you said the cost comes at the end, but that kind of quick journey to that end point.
Yeah. In fact, we generally partner with brokers to unlock real value, and that value is personalized for every member. So in our environment, a broker plays a very critical role throughout the journey of that member. They are generally licensed independently so by a regulator. So, and the regulator holds them accountable to the work and the quality that they need to provide to members. And it is for that reason that the work that they do, it's contracted by a medical aid that they might be working with. So they don't work, loosely, so they are regulated. And even if you have a complaint with a broker, the regulator would take that seriously because we understand that, they are financial advisors, and therefore there's code of conduct that they need to follow. So in a practical scenario where a broker is involved, the member would then articulate what those needs that we were discussing earlier to the broker. The role of the broker, as I said, they are independent.
Sure.
By law, they are required to then look at what are the various solutions that are available in the market
Mm.
to better fit the needs of this particular individual. And that's why in my statement I said we work with them to unlock personalized real value. And that real value actually, it's their role to make sure that they fulfill that role with the advice that they're going to provide.
Well, that's amazing because then that makes so much sense because they're coming in and they're really trying to optimize the person coming there and to give them the best possible product they can get. I love that kind of collaboration and making sure that they're doing that in an ethical way. But now that you're talking about getting a medical aid, and all of us can talk about, okay, medical aid in case anything goes wrong, you need to make sure that you're covered, all of these discussions around potentially getting ill. But everybody always says, get it when you're young, when you're healthy, because that's actually when it will really work for you in future, just in case. Could you tell me why I should get it when I'm young? I do still feel young, even though my soul might be a bit older than most. And what are the potential risks if you don't get it early on?
So the industry as a whole is actually regulated. So by design, medical aids are such that there's what we call cross subsidization,
Okay.
where a younger person, while you know that you're young and healthy, and therefore you don't need, to be overinsured,
Yeah.
the money that you pay in cross subsidizes your older counterparts,
Mm,
right? In a perfect environment, that's what
mhm.
happens. Such that by the time you get to that age as well,
You were being
somebody younger
supported.
will
Yeah.
be cross subsidizing
Okay.
you. So that's the principle of how a medical aid actually works. Now, the reality is that in most instances, I was one of those where you decide, no, I'd rather use my money to cover something else,
Mm,
a
mhm,
bond of
mhm.
sorts or an expensive car. But the more you delay the process, the more you expose yourself to what we call late joiner penalty. In short, it's just a penalty that you will have to, pay for joining late, in the system.
Sure.
And the reality is that the understanding is that there is a high chance that at that time when you join, there is a pressing need, which we
Genuinely.
call,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're trying to offset that against the costs because chances are, for instance, if you're diagnosed diabetic at the age of, say 40,
Mhm,
the reality is that if you started much earlier, you would have accrued enough money on your own
mhm.
in a medical aid, enough money to cover for diagnosis, treatment, and all other
The whole management.
protocols
Yeah.
that would go with management. Now, if you come in late and you're paying 1,500, that on its own might just go towards diagnosis
Mm,
alone. So where do you hope to get the money, to settle all these other bills? And that's why you need to come in early to avoid, late joiner penalties. And it's across the board, by the way. By regulation, all medical aids we operate the same. So even if you decide, to run away from the other scheme, Big D, and you come to Medshield, we will ask, were you covered before? If not, we are forced to apply
sure.
the late joiner penalties.
I have learnt this. It's a good thing because kind of when we were in med school, we're told as professionals, young professionals, you make sure that you're just covered. It's something that you're gonna benefit from later in life. So we were kind of told. I didn't quite understand why, but now it's a lot clearer for me to see how the system kind of works together. But since I was spoken to, not a lot of other kind of young professionals might have had that advice. Could you tell me what are some of the entry level plans that a student, a young professional might consider that would really cater to their needs? Because I know Medshield is about being a partner for life. So
Yeah.
they would ideally like you to start as early as possible so that they can make sure that they're covering you and looking after you. But what are some of the things to think about at entry level?
Yeah. So basically, at an entry level, we do have an option called Medicare. It's designed for the young and healthy. but it's rich enough. Yes,
Yes,
like
thank
you.
you. I just wanted to make sure you knew he was referring to me.
Yeah, it's rich enough to offer, any person at that kind of a entry level, benefits that are suitable for them. I'm talking GP, GP consultations. If it's a lady, if you want, contraceptives, they are covered there. If you need to do your general, dental wash and all those, they are well covered in there. There is another option, but because of the contributions, it's slightly up.
Okay.
But there are other young and healthy that potentially might not benefit on the entry level, and therefore just a notch up.
But
There is another option called Medipila that they can potentially go in there. Now the function of the broker becomes very, very critical, and I keep on emphasizing it because there is a negative notion of what is a broker, what does a broker actually does.
yeah.
In my mind, they are there for the entire journey, for as long as that member is on a medical aid. It starts with the admin.
Yeah.
So, for instance, all these questions that you're asking, a broker is equipped and trained to answer all those questions to the member. At the stage when a member then says, yeah, I now do want to join. In fact, I like your Medicare option. The broker's function is to take you through that entire process up to the point where an application is submitted on behalf of the member and it goes to the scheme, right? When the issues of, say, underwriting comes in and there's a late joiner and
Yeah.
the education behind that, it's the broker once again that drives it, to say to the member, I can see the letters as late joiner penalty. What on earth is this?
Yeah.
The broker would then do the education behind that. In fact, they don't only do the actual education to the member, they can actually go back to the medical aid to say, but no, have you applied the late joiner correctly?
Oh wow.
So they
So
can
they also
even
do that.
negotiate on behalf of the member. Supposing all that is clear, the member is now activated, and they get their welcome pack. Once again, it is the broker's role to inform the members of all the benefits that are packed in there. So their role is to help the member navigate the complexity from the beginning. And in my mind, there's no end,
Continued on. Yeah.
because once you remember, you will always need some kind of an advice, and the broker comes very handy.
I mean, that's a beautiful, like an intermediary to make sure that
Absolutely.
the two parties are communicating and it's all symbiotic. I really love that. But at the same time, we've spoken about starting and hopefully this journey that will continue on. Life does happen. And I think a lot of people at home like to know that even if this changes, family, retirement, all these various phases of life, they do have a partner for life. So could you describe to me how medical aids might change and there's an ebb and flow as one progresses?
Yeah, in fact, I want to own this one. You said
Yeah.
medical aids and partner for life. I would say it's actually Medshield who prides, self with being a partner for life. And how we do that is that the offerings, and by offering, I'm now talking a product, starting with a MediValue, a Medicare as an entry option.
Sure.
We have an option for every stage of a member's, life journey. For instance, if I've started, at the age of, say, 25 as a single member, and I'm now migrating into, I'm now having a partner to the point of having a child, we may migrate to the next level, which is the Medipila option. Life happens, chronic illnesses do kick in, suddenly there's diabetes, suddenly there's something wrong with the child, a chronic diagnosis of sort. Um, then any other option, above those would speak to what's the best option to fulfill the immediate needs that the member will need, as a chronic illness. Now, There's another concept that I like bringing into these discussions of being over-insured and under-insured, right? The reality is that the only time that we get to engage with the member is when they are underinsured. Like you said, life happens. I'm diagnosed with diabetes. Wife has got, hypertension. Now we need to say upgrade for whatever reason. But the reality is that sometimes life does not kick in when we thought it would.
Yeah.
Which means I may have started cover on a high option. And that high option, I'm paying X amount, but I'm hardly even using half of the benefits that are in there. The reality is you're over-insured, which means the broker's role kicks in there, where they need to look at, can we look at another option which actually fulfills your immediate need? Remember, we're not there to grab your premiums and
Thankfully.
not give you the benefits that you deserve. So it works both ways. And once again, key to that, it's the function of the broker. But the emphasis is from an entry, we've got even options at the top level, where an executive of a company or an owner of a company says, I'm sitting at 75-year-old, I've got multiple chronic illnesses. In our Black culture, I've got multiple partners, wives,
Potentially.
and I want to cover all of them.
Actually, yeah.
So there are also those kind of options that will fulfill, the needs of the member of that sort at that time.
It's sitting here. I've always, when it comes to medical aid, I've interacted with it as a professional with people coming in, and I'm telling you what you may be covered for. And I think for me, I've always just been like, well, I'm reasonably fit. I look after myself. I'll just get what I require at the time. It is really helpful to know that the broker plays such an important part, but also as life goes on, adjustments can be made through your life and the things that you kind of go through. Because I've always thought in my mind, you can't find something and then you stick to it and you ride it out until whenever it might be necessary. So I think that dynamic nature is actually what for me is proving that medical aid that you pick is very important.
Yep. And in fact, we talk as though there is a simple continuation, but the reality is that during a cover, some people do opt to lapse for whatever reason, right? It could be lapsing because you're no longer employed, you can't afford, and
life happens.
And that's another issue. Yeah. So what then happens is that medical aids, we allow you 3 months possible lapse period, wherein if you come back, after the 3 months, we go back to that discussion of late joiner penalty. It kicks in again. Whereas if you come back within the 3 months, we would then waiver the possibility of. So, if it's just 2 months, kind of a break, you were changing jobs. In fact, at the time you were retrenched, you were home for a month or two. Within those 2 months, you then rejoin again. That would still be seen as a continuation of cover. Whereas after the 3 months, most medical aids would reimpose, that 3 months.
That's 3 month period,
gap.
There we go. Well, since you are such an expert, I'm just going to ask, if you had to suggest a medical aid that kind of looks after you when you're young, is dynamic, potentially has auxiliary things that you can utilize, who would you think, or would you say, in your opinion,
Look,
is one of the leads in the market?
Look at the blue scheme, which is Medshield.
Okay.
And in there, I would recommend your Medicare, your Medipillar, and some of us that are also thinking we are young, we are on MediValue. So yeah, there's multiple choices.
No, but I love that there is somebody who's this passionate about their work and also knows that everybody needs to feel looked after and catered to, and you are heading such an incredible ship. Glen, thank you for sitting down. Thank you for illuminating me, because I also didn't know as much when it comes to medical aid plans and the schemes around it. And there you have it, Medshield Movement Connect Show, connecting the dots, hopefully clarifying things for you too, making sure you make the right decision to find the partner for life for you.
Your trusted partner for life since 1968.